Burnout on the job, in the family. Let's address burnout, the causes for it, how to avoid it, how to overcome burnout. Frequently, it's a matter of not knowing your purpose, what things are all about. Listen to this podcast to discuss and learn how burnout can occur with Sarah and how she overcame. Hi there, and thank you for joining us on the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. We feature those who are in the process of overcoming or have overcome any type of life encounter, life obstacle that at the time seemed to be almost insurmountable. With this podcast, we have three objectives in mind. Our first objective is we want you to know with a confident resolve you are not alone. We want to work with you. We want you to know there are others who are working with you, who want to help you through whatever you are encountering, and together we will get through whatever you're experiencing.
Our second objective is there are multiple options for any life encounter you are facing. We want to help you develop a resolve that there are various options and solutions to any life dilemma.
Our third objective is to help you with critical thinking skills. If you're encountering something that was possibly a decision you made sometime in the past, and if you had the opportunity for a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with those critical thinking skills that can help you make an informed decision and not encounter what you're going through at the moment. We are the Cooper Culture, a veteran-owned business. We work with business personnel and families to develop and sustain connected relationship cultures within their families and organizations. That type organization is one where people feel wanted, appreciated, and genuinely a part of that organization. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty, who has helped me facilitate this podcast. Today we feature Sarah Rose, who discusses with us burnout. Burnout can occur at home, at work. The emphasis is work. She discusses with us how she experienced burnout in her former workplace, where to a degree she chased the money, but she felt that what was intended to be, she thought would be a real satisfying job, turned out to be a lot of transactional work, which took a lot of energy from her. And by the time she arrived home, she was pretty distraught. But she discusses with us some of the factors that can lead to, but then how to overcome burnout. Marty, what are some takeaways we can gain from Sarah?
First run, if you're a company or you are looking for a coach, Sarah's smile alone would say, I want to do business with her. She has this perfect smile and personality, just really is very welcoming. That gives off I can do businesses with this person because of the personality. I asked her about when she transitioned from her old job to figuring out what she wanted to do other than being in the same type of situation. So she gives you 5 points for you to figure out how you can go from where you're not satisfied to where you can.
It's a great opportunity for us to learn how to avoid burnout, but if we're in that state of burnout, how we can find fulfillment and joy in our lives. Let's listen and learn together. Sarah, it is great to have you with us. Our listeners are going to be very interested in your life insights about burnout at work. Undoubtedly, we have a few listeners who are or have experienced burnout. And that may be a part of, well, I'm not even sure I know my purpose in life. I'm not sure my leaders care about me. Any number of things like this may contribute to this term of burnout. But Sarah, you have some great life insights into that. Welcome aboard. It's going to be great to learn from you.
Thank you so much for having me. All right. Yes, I'm excited to chat about this conversation. It's
Sarah,
near and dear. near
Yeah,
and dear to my heart.
fabulous. Talk to us about getting just starting where you want, but maybe just somewhere
Sure.
start on the topic of burnout. What are some of the causes, and then how can we avoid it or help someone overcome?
Sure. So we can start with that. Burnout often looks like um, it can look similar to what some people might describe as depression at home or in other places of their life. So it kind of has a mental health spin to it. But why I bring that up is because burnout can look like us losing interest at work. It can look like us not meeting our deadlines. It can look like um, pulling back or isolating, deciding we don't really care about the conversation or want to invest as much. And it can also look, there can be physical symptoms of burnout. So there can be more migraines, there can be some health issues, chronic pain. Those kinds of things can be connected because of burnout. It's like they're intertwined. And so there's physiological components of burnout, but there's also the psychological components of burnout, and simply the impact on tasks and completion at work too. So I know this because I went through this process myself. I had a dream career, to be honest. I can share a little bit more about how I found that. But I got to a place in this dream career where it was no longer a dream career. It was exhausting me. So I've been there. It is a very hard place to be, and you oftentimes don't realize you're there because it's a slippery slope into that space.
Talk to us about your journey of burnout and um, in the context of care that and this
Yeah.
what you seem to describe, or at least what I discern, you saying, man, I think I've learned I think I have gotten into the dream job, but
Mhm.
after some period of time this is not what I thought it would be. And if
Yeah.
I'm describing it wrong, tell us, Sarah, but describe that for us.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that I was in a job. I actually had identified a job I wanted, and it was in the higher education realm. And I had said, "Ooh, I want that job. It looks great in terms of the impact I can make. It has great pay, it has great benefits, all those things." And so I literally lined up my education, I lined up my experience so that I could go get that job, and I did. I was making six figures. I had a pension. It was a great job in terms of the impact I was getting to make with students and in the higher education community. And yet there was something that shifted a few years in. To be honest, I can't name the exact moment, right? But what I do know is that it was around the time I had kids and moved into leadership roles that I started to notice things were feeling really hard. They were feeling like, oh, I'd get to the end of the day and I would have gone and gone and gone and gone. And I wasn't actually getting the work done that I wanted to get done, but I was productive. I was busy all day, right? And I'd get home and I was exhausted. I didn't have the energy for my kids. I didn't have the energy to put into relationship in my marriage. All those things were happening. And yet I was always somebody that was just like, you can do it. Just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going, right? And I think a lot of women get like this, where especially because I think we're like, we can handle it all. We're putting everybody else's needs ahead of ours. And oftentimes, what happens is we just forget about ourselves in all of that. So that's where I think I was. I noticed that I was just more and more tired and depleted. And it didn't happen overnight. It really was this like slow pattern towards that, but I didn't know I was in that kind of slippery slope towards burnout until I was there. So I really knew I needed more options for my career. But when I looked around, I kept thinking, okay, so if I leave this 50-hour a week job that has great impact, I'm getting a lot of meaning out of this job, right? But if I moved to another job, I was already at the pinnacle of what I could make and the benefits I could get. So I would have been taking a 50% pay cut. I would have been leaving a lot of benefits on the table to move or change employers. And so I just continued to feel more and more stuck. So I realized that there was I began to make some changes, and over time I realized there was kind of five strategies that I think people need to take in order to get out of a situation like this. I didn't know it back then. Most people can't see it back when they're in it, but that's what I realized over the last few years.
Let me ask you a top level question, and then I know Marty has a question as well. What
Yeah.
I'm hearing you say, and tell me if I'm processing it wrong, to a degree, you chased the money, it looked good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, in
Mm-hmm.
hindsight, and I'm going to ask you a question with no accusation, but
Sure.
did you enter a leadership role in hindsight where you felt you were not equipped to do it? You were put in a position and it would have been more fulfilling if you had been equipped, trained to do that. And because maybe you were not,
Mm-hmm.
that at the end of the day, you did not feel fulfilled. And there's a gap between fulfillment and being equipped to have the just total satisfaction. I am doing what I am called to do. That's a multifaceted question, Sarah, but I'm very
Yeah.
interested in your thoughts.
Okay, so I think I would say two things to that. One is I believe that I had a lot of leadership skills. I naturally was a leader my whole career. And regardless of the title, I kept getting pulled into those leadership projects or kind of informal roles. So I think there was naturally I was a leader, and naturally I think I had a lot of skills that aligned with leadership. However, I don't think I had enough awareness of how important it was to keep yourself at the center of that leadership in terms of making sure you weren't getting yourself depleted, that you were learning how to delegate more. I think all of those things I learned over time, but I didn't know those up front. And I did not have much leadership training from my organization. That was just not, culturally, they do not train well in leadership. So I sought it out because I knew I needed more, but I would say that there were gaps for sure. And I also think there was a lack of awareness of the support leaders need. And I think that's part of to stay healthy and well. And I think that's part of a gap that many organizations have today.
Oh, I think you have hit on a very, very important topic. And when I use the word equip, I am talking about, I would call it in-house training, on-the-job training,
Mm-hmm.
uh, supervisors who
Yeah.
genuinely cared for you to know that, well, Sarah, I'm going to at least I'm going to ask you, do you feel equipped to do? And you may feel, well, tell me what you know. And so we fill in the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge gaps. But Marty?
Well, I may be too soon in the conversation, but you had to make a choice. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
leave.
Yep.
So, how did you determine your purpose and what your calling is, and then your vision for it, and then your goal? I just want to insert here. We have a purpose, vision, goal workshop that we do with people. So,
Nice.
you know,
Yes.
because we have listeners that are probably in the same situation you are, and they want, I have a purpose. I'm not sure what it is. I have a vision.
Mm-hmm.
I need to see that, and I have a goal that I need to work on.
Yeah, I love that. So that those are along the lines of where I started. So basically I began going, okay, what are my options? And I started to look at my options from just like a skill perspective. Like, what skills do I have? What do other people tell me I'm good at? What do I know I'm good at? And then also, I started to look around my organization and go, where is the professional development that I can tap now, right here, or that they would pay for? So I actually didn't leave right away, Marty. I stayed because I really did feel stuck. But I started to kind of like scan the landscape to figure out, okay, what do I already possess? What benefits are here that I could tap into and begin to almost create a path out or create a more robust skill set so that I had a path out. I felt like higher education as an industry was kind of a narrow focus, and I needed to broaden that for me personally. So, number one, I started to kind of just like check this landscape and assess myself for what I had already. The other thing that I really had to do is I had to shift my mindset a little bit around stop worrying about replacing the money and start focusing on what impact you want to make. And just like, what were the dreams I had in me? Right. So, kind of like, it's almost like I couldn't get there until I set the money problem aside. Now, I knew I was going to have to solve that eventually, but it's like I had to shift that over so that I could really go, okay, but what do you want to do? Like, what is your what do you want to do in the world, right? Like, I really was kind of, you can call it passion, you can call it impact, whatever it is, but I really did have these ideas and thoughts in me that I knew I could do more. I knew I had more potential in my career. But it's like I needed time to download those thoughts, because in the busy world of life, you don't get time to really reflect on some of those pieces. So I think those two. And then I would also say, I got my like list of 5 in front of me and I'm trying to partner it with your question. But I think the other thing is that then this connects to, I think, like the values and pieces too, is I started to think about, where do I get energy in my work and home, and what is important to me, right? And the values piece is that what is important to me. But I also noticed that when I was doing things that were important to me, or doing things in ways that filled me up, I also was like getting energy from those. They were like energy fillers versus depleters. So I'll give you a quick example. When I would work with with a student, for instance, in my job, I had students I would work with. And if the interaction was very transactional, it was a depleting conversation. It's like I was left going, okay, all right, just move on to the next one, right? Like, it was it depleted me. It was energy sucking. I was giving, but I wasn't getting a lot. When I'd have a conversation that was much more like interactive and connecting, and the person shared a little of their story with me, all of a sudden that appointment would fill me up. It would give me energy. So, I had a job that was filled with all of these appointments all day long. So they had the potential to really deplete me or really energize me. And so I began to notice what was energizing, and I started to put more of that into the appointments that were kind of more transactional. So I'd stop and I'd say, well, just tell me a little bit more about your backstory. Like, how did you get here? Right. And just even getting to hear their story and connect with them allowed me to kind of get like an energy boost from that. It sounds so weird, but it's like just that extra question in that appointment made it way less transactional and depleting for me. And so I changed how I worked, and it allowed for it allowed for my days to actually end up feeling way better. So that's just a little example, but you can do this in ways that are like, you can choose how you when you have appointments or when you have meetings. If you're not a morning person and you have a meeting at 8 a.m. every morning, it might be depleting you right out of the gate, right? So how can you actually shift that to other times? But I think really knowing our values, I think that's awesome that you guys are teaching that. It helps us know when we're aligned with our values, we tend to get that energy. We tend to feel really good. When people are stepping on our values, or the way we're working is stepping on our values, we just get so depleted so quickly.
Very, very insightful, Sarah. Several questions come to mind, but we are totally in alignment with you. One question that I really want to get into your 5 points to have our listeners learn about that.
Sure.
But did you have any problem identifying your strengths? Because there's some listeners who would say, I don't know that I even have strengths. Marty and I are believers, and I suspect you are as well, Sarah. Everybody has strengths. It's just a matter of identifying and highlighting those strengths. When we work within those strengths, we can be, I believe, I'm going to use different terms, transformational rather than transactional. And when you are a part of a person's transformation, oh boy, that is really energizing.
It is. Yes. So strengths I actually had an opportunity to take the Gallup's Clifton Strengths Assessment a
Mm-hmm.
long time ago. And that actually was very telling to me. That's one of the pieces I pulled back out when I started to assess what are the skills I have? What are the strengths I have? Let me just kind of reconnect to these things and see if they make sense to me. Do they fit at this stage in my career? And so, one of the things that I started to realize is that for me, my strengths are around relational. They're around thinking ahead, futuristic. They're around strategy. And so I started to go, okay, how can I apply those strengths to actually my career shift is what I started to do even. So number one, I think a strengths assessment like that is super helpful, but I also think we can do it without that. We can do it by simply going, what would somebody else say that I'm good at? We know people have told us things that we're good at our whole lives. Now, we don't always remember those. We love remembering the negative things or the shortcomings that we all have, right? But people have told you what you're good at. Your bosses have, your parents have, your partners have, your kids even have. We have to listen to them and we have to kind of reflect on them, right? But we also know too, like, what if you really were being honest with yourself and allowed yourself permission to kind of brag? What are you good at? Right? I think like prefacing that question with like freedom to brag is honestly really helpful for people. And then I think the other thing is starting to just look around at what you've done helps too. Our experiences give us strengths.
That's great insights. Sarah, what are the 5 points that you have taken from your life experiences and I suspect what you are passing forward to others?
Already mentioned a couple of them, so I'll just quick do those. But one is number one, assessing those strengths and skills and your own values. What's important to you and what do you already possess? Number two, set aside the worry about money and just focus on how do you want to make impact in your world? What do you dream about? What do you wish you could change or shift? So those two are kind of that reflection space. And then I think the next thing is really starting to do like an energy audit. Where are you getting energy? Where is energy getting taken from you in your everyday life? Do this for home and do this for work. And do this for relationships too, because some relationships give and take. Um, and then the other two that I haven't really mentioned is one is I had to make a conscious decision that I matter to, which sounds kind of funny, but it's like I had to say, you know what? Your needs matter. And in fact, you have needs. And I really literally had to stop and think, wait, what are my needs? At this point in my life, I didn't know. And so just taking stock of number one, committing to I matter to, my needs matter to, and figuring out what are your needs. They might be space and time. They might be freedom to learn. They might be the opportunity to travel or do something new, right? New experience, that kind of thing. But you got to know what your needs are and you have to commit to mattering. And then finally, that you can redefine your lane. So I think of our jobs as lanes. We have job descriptions. Oftentimes, as we are in a role or a job for a long time, our lanes seem to expand, right? Like we get more and more duties as assigned or as not assigned. And what I think is we can reestablish those lanes, we can narrow those back down. Oftentimes, the first part of our careers or even jobs, we tend to want to expand and go, oh, I can help with that. I can do that. But it's really important to redefine your lane and try to narrow that back down to what is it that I need to be doing versus what could I do? What might I do? What should I do? Figure out what you need to do. And that can help narrow that lane and really give you some extra space that I think women don't realize they can take back.
Very well said. I will use only slightly different terms that say the same thing you did, but I do believe in the context of purpose,
Mhm.
we do have a life purpose that I would say largely doesn't change because it's who we're born to be. However, our vision for to implement that purpose might change as our
Mhm.
life changes, as I think you just described, Sarah. And
Yeah.
it is, I think you might agree, and I would ask this as a question, might it be appropriate to take a life time out if we are arriving home exhausted almost every day of the week because of something at work? Is it
Mhm.
appropriate to take a time out to assess your life, your purpose, your vision, and so forth? And I will stop very quickly by saying, or soon, by saying that I believe there is a continuum between home and work. We need to have the harmony between home and work
Mhm.
because if things aren't going well at home, you'll likely carry that into work and the same type thing.
Yep.
When things
Vice
aren't
versa.
going well at work, we're likely going to bring it home. Sarah, for
Mhm.
the person who might be experiencing maybe early stages of burnout, meaning I'm exhausted every day I come home. How would you
Mhm.
recommend a person to even get started?
Well, I love the idea of the timeout, and I would just pair it with that energy audit. I would make a list of the substantial components of your job, the substantial components of your role at home, and anything else that you're doing. There are people that are doing hobbies or, let's say, types of exercise even that they think are filling them up or that are giving them life, right? That I should be exercising. This is healthy for me. But what they're doing is they might be running marathons and those are depleting them. But whenever they go get to do a Zumba class, they leave going, oh my gosh, this is awesome. Okay, why aren't we doing more Zumba? Because remember, you're leaving feeling awesome, right? So again, I think that energy audit is super important. I love the idea of like wait, I need to give myself a timeout and time to reflect on what is working and what isn't working. I think space in our lives and permission to take space to reflect, it is not done enough.
Let's talk about purpose and how that might fit with your life and the possibility of avoiding burnout. Purpose is a matter of knowing who you are, what you're about, your strengths, your resolve to pursue a venture, and your purpose has to do with your strengths, your personality, and putting all of that into practice. When you know your purpose, what it is you are created to do, you could say something to the effect, I was born to do what I'm doing. When we learn our purpose, when we go through the mechanics of and learn exactly what our purpose is, when we write it down and when we read it periodically, we can learn to determine and have with resolve our purpose in life. When we have this firmly implanted in us and when we quite literally repeat it over and over again, we'll be able to overcome those naysayers, those who are uncertain about themselves, those who might even say, I just don't see it in you. But when we have worked together to determine your purpose and you have it as a matter of resolve that you are moving forward with that purpose, you will experience fulfillment in your life. Let's work together. We'll help you determine your purpose. We have done that in our lives, and through knowing our purpose, living our purpose, we have fulfillment. Contact thecooperculture.com. Let's work together. Call me at 703-732-4780 or send an email to ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. Let's set up a plan so we can help you determine with a confident resolve your purpose in life so that you can experience fulfillment in your family, your work, in everything about your life. We look forward to working with you so that you can go about life with a very confident resolve.
And it's what we're missing, to be honest.
I think you're right on. Do you have a coaching business? Are you reaching out to other people to help? And it sounds like your emphasis is for women, but
Yep.
men may be experiencing something similar to this. But can you
Yep.
help a lot of different types of people get out
Yep.
from or maybe even avoid burnout?
Yep. I do. I have a coaching business. I do one-on-one coaching. I also do a program called Re-Energize Her that is specifically for women in that kind of 35 to 55 mid-career space that are oftentimes experiencing these things. And then I also work with employers because I don't think employers really realize yet how much they can influence around productivity and retention of employees if they focus on well-being. There are kind of 10 levers that the US Surgeon General identifies as spaces that we can use to improve the well-being in our workplaces, and employers have a big ability to influence that and to work on retention and productivity through those. So I do some consulting with organizations as well using that framework.
Again, very well said. And I will tell you, Sarah, I would enjoy exploring opportunities to collaborate with you because we are all about home and workplace cultures. And the term culture is a broad encompassing term, but it is a matter of knowing who you are, what you're good at, and what brings fulfillment in our lives. And when we as leaders in the home, leaders at work, care enough to learn our people, we can create a culture where I can promise you we will attract quality people and we will retain quality people. Retain in the context of I have at least a 90+% retention rate. And I know statistically it'll cost a minimum of $65,000 to replace any person in the workplace, from acquisition cost to loss of productivity. And if the culture is such that maybe we have to litigate each other because, Sarah, you quite honestly don't like me, I know that can go into the millions. I'm
Yeah.
talking very facetiously in the context of litigation, but it is a
Yeah.
culture at home and at work. And when we are creating a very favorable culture, we can have a lot of life enjoyment.
Yes, I totally agree. We are in alignment, Ron.
Sarah, it is just great to have you with us. I know there's some number of our listeners who are experiencing burnout or they're in the early stages of burnout, and we want to help them and we want to help the leaders to
Yeah.
help those in their organization know how to deal with and hopefully even avoid burnout. A lot of this has to do with leadership, that we must know people and what various people are going through. And even from the leadership standpoint, have the courage to reach out and just ask, Sarah, are you doing okay? Because you may not feel comfortable initiating that type of conversation with me. I'm rambling here a little bit, Sarah, but I really appreciate your thought stimulating ideas.
Good. Yeah,
Very good.
definitely. People are welcome to catch me on, they can find me on email or Sarah at freshrisegroup.com, or they can find me online, freshrisegroup.com. I can also leave a couple tools for you guys if you want to share them with your audience as well. So
We will do that, and we will
Okay.
put all of that in the narrative section of this podcast so that people, even before they listen to the podcast, will know exactly how to contact you and take advantage of your services. Sarah,
Great.
thank you so much for your life experiences and how you're reaching out to other people.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
Thank you both.
We appreciate having the opportunity to share and our guests' life experiences with you.
The Cooper culture advances organizations to achieve and sustain high retention rates, connected communication, and trust through personality insights and principled leadership. You can contact us at our website, thecooperculture.com, and you can contact us directly at ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at thecooperculture.com. We work with you to help assess aspects of your culture to advance the environment and people to their best performance. We do that through our staff of certified personal performance coaches, leadership trainers, keynote speakers, and DISC personality behavior experts. You can book a speaking engagement directly through our website by contacting us at ron@thecooperculture.com. We look forward to sharing our life experiences with you, some of which are profound, some of which are pretty funny. Some of those life experiences are ones we'll never do that again because we've been through stuff. We truly look forward to working with you, speaking with you, helping advance you in any way that we can.